Sara Hart earned her PhD from Northwestern University and then worked for many years at Pfizer, where she was responsible for a wide range of HR activities, including building and managing the learning and development function for the research division in the U.S., helping to develop strategy for process redesign and launching the changes within the organization. She also was head of HR at Pfizer's Research Center in the UK. Subsequently, she was executive director of the Anita Borg Institute for Women in Technology in Palo Alto and is the founder and president of HeartCom, a consulting company. Over the years, she has offered a wide range of programs and has facilitated a variety of group and team meetings and events. She's a certified coach from the Hudson Institute of Santa Barbara, HeartMath, and from the world-renowned Time to Think. She is an experienced consultant to organizations and a professional speaker. Well, welcome, Sara. We are just so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Gail. I am delighted to be here.
Well, you've been in business for a very long time, it seems. So your own business now that you have, what has been your focus? Is it still HR or are you concentrating in other arenas?
Over the years, with my HeartCom consulting business, I've done anything within HR that has to do with people development. When I left Pfizer, I promised myself, unless I was hungry, I wouldn't do HR work that I didn't want to do anymore. But what I did want to do was coaching and team building and off-site meetings and all that kind of work. So that's what I've been doing. Some of the work that I've done a lot of within that is called the thinking environment. That is from a company called Time to Think in the UK. And for about 17 years now, I've also been working with the question, how will I know when I have enough? So I call that work sign of enough. And it has been very important to me since the mid-90s. And so I have added that to the more general people development kind of work that I've done.
Well, when I saw that, when I was kind of researching what you did, I thought to myself, how many times do people say, I've had enough, or this is enough. I am not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to have this happen to me anymore. Is that basically where it came from?
Well, actually where it came from was when I moved from the East Coast to San Francisco in the mid-90s. And when I got there, we were in the middle out here of that dot-com boom. And every day in the newspaper, there were stories about overnight multimillionaires. I mean, people who were 24 and were making, from Thursday to Friday, they went from being close to penniless to being millionaires. It was fascinating to watch. And sadly, not too long after that, there started being stories in the newspaper about how actually unhappy a lot of these guys, most of them were guys, not all, but most, how unhappy they were. And very sadly, some committed suicide because basically they felt their life was at an end. They'd done everything they had hoped to do, and they didn't have any idea what they would do next to top it. But some of the fellows, what they did next was start another company. And I remember at the time reading about that and thinking, good grief, you guys. How will you know when you have enough? And that struck me, actually. And I thought, well, how does any one of us know when we have enough? And so I really started looking at that and developed really the core question is, how will I know when I have enough? And that's really how the whole thing started.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about, the young men who one day were penniless and the next day, were worth millions. And yet many of them were then worth were penniless again because of everything went bust. And
Yep,
of course,
that's right.
that's when I'm sure many of the suicides happened because they couldn't believe it happened to them. And there's just a whole lot of psychological things that go along with that. But I think, this is a show about living regret free. And what I'm hearing from you is you, with your HR background, because, HR used to be, until it's gotten so legal, but HR really used to be about coaching and used to be about people getting along well and making sure that the right people were in the right places, doing the right things. So when you got involved in this consulting business and developed the sign of enough, um, what what kind of where have you seen it progress? I mean, how have you seen it change over the last many years?
Well, one of the ways I've seen it change is when I first started talking about it, and I was doing some writing about it primarily for myself, but I was still writing about it to try to formulate my ideas. When I would talk to people about it, or when I would have a workshop, or when I would give a talk and say, how will I know when I have enough? Or how will you know when you have enough? And people would look at me sort of quizzically and say, enough what? And that was a very common reaction. 17 years later, when I really decided at the beginning of 2014 I was going to focus on Sign of Enough, really focus on it. When I asked people that question, almost across the board, they would go, oh, that's a really important question. So our sensitivity and our consciousness has changed hugely over those years. I don't know that many of us are doing much about it, but we are very, very aware of our overconsumption, the impact it's having on our environment, and the impact stuff and activities and all of that is having on our lives. So it's something that is in the forefront of people's minds. I don't know that very much action is taken. So that's a huge thing I see different.
So who would your audience be for this, for the Sign of Enough? Do you work with companies? Do you work with individuals? Both? And what's the receptivity to all of this?
I work so far with, I have worked inside companies. It's, in all candor, it's not a question that most companies want their employees to explore.
I was just going to say that.
Right.
Because you're really opening up a can of worms,
Yeah.
as people begin to think about, well, what am I doing and why am I doing it and what's the meaning of it and all of that.
Right. The places where I have worked inside companies, one of the things pretty much across the board that people come to is, I've had way enough work. I'm not work. I hate this 24/7 work life I have, because that's what's happened to so many of us with the technology. And so that is, except for a handful of companies that are really forward thinking, that is not something that most companies want their people to look at. So I have not done very much work inside organizations. I mostly work with individuals who really are ready in their lives to examine the quality of their life and how they want to live in the world and how they want to live going forward. And it can be any age. I find the most receptivity from people over about 50, because what we have come to realize is that we actually spent the first 2/3 of our lives acquiring, and now we're spending the last third of our life trying to figure out how to get rid of. And so those people, people in this age group are very, very receptive, but also so are millennials, because they're actually very concerned about the world and the earth, and they really want to make an impact. They don't know how. And so, and they don't have the largest attention span. And so to talk about something that will make a difference down the road, it isn't real successful. It needs to be immediate, like a beach cleanup, or something like that. So most of the work I do is at this point is with individuals, although I would love to be working inside companies, because I think that in terms of making an impact in the world, that's where the impact is going to come. Although I do believe that all change starts with individuals. So I'm fine with that.
Well, you'd probably have to go with a very, very fast-paced entrepreneurial organization, because they're the ones that like change, and they really don't care if their people leave, because they know they will go on to greater things. So, a fast-paced entrepreneurial company would probably be the best shot for you. But it's very interesting because, I work with boomers. My main focus is women 50 plus. And I find that when they, and I guess men too, get to 50, they say, is that all there is? And that's why they start questioning, is this enough, or is this where I want to be? And you are so right with the downsizing after that, and trying to figure out what do you want to keep and what do you want to shed. And mostly your kids are not interested in any of your precious stuff, the things that you think are so important, they're really not interested in. So in fact, today, how many people, young people, really have pictures on the wall? They've got pictures on their phones, but there's no pictures on the wall. And it used to be family pictures on the piano and on the desks and all over the place. So it's totally, totally different. So what would you say your short or medium term intention for Sign of Enough is?
My short, medium term really is to work with individuals to help them identify how will I know when I have enough in whatever way is meaningful for them. And I see the idea of thinking about how will I know when I have enough as a journey. I don't think it's an end point. And so my short-term, medium-term goal is to get my message out to as many individuals as are interested and help them begin that journey. Because what I really want, it's pretty simple. I really want people to be happy is what I want.
Well, see, that's what I'm all about too. I always say my end goal, no matter what it is that you do or how you live your life, is joy. And if you can't get up with a smile and you can't go to bed with a smile, what's the whole point of whatever you've done all day? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm with you on that. So let me ask you, what would be, if somebody got involved with you, what would be one of the first questions you would ask them?
Well, I actually have an assessment tool that I have people fill out to respond to first. And that helps us identify, and it's not scientific, it's not, but it really helps people identify the areas of their life that are most important to them to take a look at in terms of the Sign of Enough. And after we've identified those, and it comes through pretty clearly on this tool, once we've identified those, then we really start focusing on it. I mean, I'm working with a young woman right now, and she is actually younger than the typical person I work with, but she is a mother of a 2-year-old and is about to have a baby any day now. And one of the things that she talks about is not having enough time to do anything that she wants to do. And she wants to be a good mother, of course, but she's a lot more than a mother. And so we're looking at ways that she might carve out time so that she has at least a bit of time for herself. That's
interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Now, what about the long-term goals? What about the long-term vision for Sign of Enough? Where do you see that?
My really long-term vision is that leaders of a company, 2 or 3 leaders of big companies will hear the message and think, my company is really big enough. And what we need to do is figure out an economic system that doesn't depend solely on growth for success. Because right now, that's what makes a company successful, growth. And that's how CEOs